Hello students. Today, we are going to talk about the Love Song of J Alfred Prufrock. This poem was written by T S Eliot, the poet of the 20th century. Eliot wrote this poem in 1915, and it is considered one of the first modernist poems. Modernist poetry means that it is different from older poems in terms of structure, meter, language, rhythm and themes. It does not follow traditional patterns, and it shows the feelings and confusion of people living in the modern world. Introduction to the poem. The title of the poem is The Love Song of J Alfred Prufrock. When you hear the words a love song, you might think this is a happy poem about love. However, this poem is not happy at all. It is about a man named J Alfred Prufrock. He is not confident, and he feels very unsure about himself. He wants to tell someone, maybe a woman he loves, how he feels, but he is too nervous and afraid. This poem is written as a dramatic monologue. A dramatic monologue is when one person speaks for the entire poem. The speaker, Prufrock, tells us his thoughts and feelings. It is like he is talking to himself or to us, the readers. Explanation of the poem, The Love Song of J Alfred Prufrock. Let us begin the poem now. The poem begins with a quotation in Italian. Do not worry about this part. It is from a book called Dante's Inferno, and it means that someone is in a terrible place but will not tell anyone about it. This sets the mood for the poem. It shows that Prufrock feels trapped and unhappy, but he does not want to openly admit it. Let us go then, you and I. When the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. Prufrock is inviting someone, perhaps the reader, to go with him. He says, let us go then, you and I. This shows that he is not alone in his thoughts. He is talking to someone, maybe even to himself. He describes the evening as spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. This is a strange image. He compares the evening sky to a sick person who is unconscious on an operating table. Etherized means being unconscious with a drug called ether. This gives us a sense that the evening is calm but also lifeless and sad. Prufrock is not describing a happy or beautiful evening. Instead, he is showing us that everything feels dull and lifeless to him. Prufrock invites us to go with him through the city. He describes half-deserted streets. These are streets where not many people are walking. It feels lonely. He talks about muttering retreats. These are places where people whisper or talk quietly. They are not happy places. Then, he mentions one-night cheap hotels. These are small hotels where people stay for one night. They are not fancy or comfortable. He also talks about sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. These are cheap restaurants where the floors are covered with sawdust, and they serve oysters, a kind of seafood. All of this shows us that Prufrock is describing a poor and sad part of the city. It is not a cheerful or exciting place. Here, Prufrock is telling us not to ask questions about where they are going. He does not want to explain. He simply says, let us go. This shows that he is avoiding questions. He does not want to think too much about what he is doing. The poem continues. Prufrock describes the fog. He imagines it like a cat. He says that a yellow fog rubs its back and muzzle, its nose, on the windows. The fog seems alive, like a playful animal. The fog licked its tongue into the corners of the evening. This means the fog spreads into every part of the city. It goes into the corners of the streets and the drains. It is yellow because of pollution from chimneys. Finally, the fog curled once about the house, and fell asleep. This gives the fog a calm, sleepy feeling. The way Prufrock describes the fog shows us how lonely and quiet the city feels to him. Prufrock then begins to talk about his own feelings. Prufrock is thinking about whether he should do something important. He does not say exactly what, but it might be talking to someone he loves. He wonders, do I dare? This means, do I have the courage to do it? He is afraid of being judged by other people. He even imagines people noticing his bald spot and saying how his hair is growing thin. This shows that Prufrock feels insecure about himself. He worries too much about what others think of him. Prufrock continues. Prufrock is saying that there is plenty of time. But instead of using that time to take action, he spends it making indecisions. This means he cannot decide what to do. He has visions and revisions. This means he keeps imagining things and then changing his mind. He mentions the taking of a toast and tea. This is an ordinary, small action. It shows that he spends too much time thinking about small things instead of doing anything important. Later in the poem, Prufrock says, "I have measured out my life with coffee spoons." This is a very famous line. It means that Prufrock's life feels small and boring. Instead of doing great or exciting things, he measures his life by how many cups of coffee he drinks. It is a sad way to describe life. Prufrock asks more questions. Prufrock wonders if he should take a risk. Do I dare disturb the universe means, do I have the courage to change something important? But he is afraid. He says that even if he decides to do something, he might change his mind in the next minute. This shows that he is full of doubt and fear. Prufrock compares himself to others. He says, "No. I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be." Prince Hamlet is a character from a play by William Shakespeare. Hamlet is a prince who is full of doubt, but he is also brave and important. Prufrock says he is not like Hamlet. He is not brave or important. Instead, he says he is more like a minor character, someone who does not matter much. The poem ends with these lines. "We have lingered in the chambers of the sea, by sea-girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us, and we drown." Here, Prufrock imagines himself in a dreamlike underwater world. Sea-girls might represent fantasies or dreams. But when human voices wake us, he is brought back to reality. He says, "we drown," which might mean he feels overwhelmed by real life. Now that we have gone through the poem, let us think about what it means. The love song of J Alfred Prufrock is about a man who feels afraid, insecure, and lonely. He wants to do something important, maybe confess his love to someone, but he is too scared. He keeps questioning himself and thinking about what others will say. This makes him feel stuck and unhappy. The poem is also about modern life. It shows how people in the modern world often feel disconnected and unsure of themselves. Prufrock is not a hero but an ordinary man who feels insecure about himself. Analysis of The Love Song of J Alfred Prufrock. T S Eliot's The Love Song of J Alfred Prufrock is one of the defining works of modernist literature. It captures the inner conflict, emotional paralysis, and alienation that characterize the modern experience. Themes of the poem, The Love Song of J Alfred Prufrock. Fear and insecurity. The central theme of the poem is J Alfred Prufrock's overwhelming fear and insecurity. He is deeply self-conscious about his appearance, behavior, and decisions. For example, he worries about people noticing his bald spot, and imagines them saying how his hair is growing thin. This reveals his lack of confidence, which prevents him from taking action or expressing his true feelings. Prufrock's constant questioning, "Do I dare?" emphasizes his hesitation. He is afraid of rejection, failure, and judgment. This fear keeps him trapped in his thoughts, unable to act on his desires or even make decisions. Alienation and isolation. Prufrock feels disconnected from the world around him. The city he describes is lifeless and dreary, with half-deserted streets and one-night cheap hotels. These images reflect Prufrock's sense of alienation. Even in social settings, like the parties, he feels like an outsider. He imagines himself being scrutinized and judged, which heightens his isolation. Prufrock's inability to communicate his feelings adds to his alienation. Although he is the narrator, he speaks in a way that is fragmented and hesitant. This reflects his difficulty in expressing himself fully. Paralysis and indecision. One of the most significant themes of the poem is paralysis. Prufrock's indecision is clear throughout the poem. He constantly wonders whether he should take action. Do I dare disturb the universe? But he never does. Instead, he distracts himself by overthinking every detail. He measures out his life with coffee spoons, which symbolizes the small, repetitive actions that have taken the place of meaningful decisions in his life. Prufrock's fear of making mistakes paralyzes him. He worries about the consequences of his actions, even before he takes any. This indecision prevents him from pursuing his desires or achieving personal fulfillment. Modern life and fragmentation. The poem reflects the fragmented nature of modern life. Prufrock's thoughts are disconnected, and his speech is filled with interruptions and contradictions. This reflects the chaos and lack of coherence in the modern world. Prufrock feels lost in this fragmented society, where traditional values and clear goals have been replaced by uncertainty and doubt. Structure and form of The Lovesong of J Alfred Prufrock. The poem is written as a dramatic monologue. In this form, a single speaker, Prufrock, shares their thoughts and feelings with the audience. However, unlike traditional dramatic monologues, Prufrock's speech is not directed at a specific listener. Instead, it feels like he is talking to himself or to an imagined companion. This enhances the sense of introspection and isolation. The poem does not follow a strict rhyme scheme or meter. Instead, Eliot uses free verse, which mirrors the fragmented and uncertain nature of Prufrock's thoughts. The irregular rhythm and structure reflect his hesitation and indecision. Imagery of The Lovesong of J Alfred Prufrock. Eliot's use of vivid and symbolic imagery is one of the poem's most striking features. At the beginning of the poem, Prufrock describes the evening as spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. This comparison creates a disturbing image of lifelessness. It sets the tone for the poem, suggesting that Prufrock sees the world as dull and unchanging. The yellow fog is described as if it were a living creature, like a cat. It rubs its back upon the window panes, and curled once about the house, and fell asleep. This imagery creates a sense of quietness and lethargy, reflecting Prufrock's own inactivity. The fog also symbolizes the murky and unclear nature of his thoughts. Prufrock's descriptions of the city emphasize its emptiness and decay. He talks about half-deserted streets and cheap hotels, which create a bleak and lifeless setting. These images reflect his inner feelings of emptiness and despair. Tone of The Lovesong of J Alfred Prufrock. The tone of the poem is deeply introspective and melancholic. Prufrock is constantly questioning himself, doubting his abilities, and reflecting on his failures. His tone is also self-deprecating, as he mocks himself for his cowardice and lack of confidence. For example, he says, "No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be," implying that he sees himself as insignificant and unimportant. Despite its sadness, the poem also has moments of irony and dark humor. For example, Prufrock measures his life with coffee spoons, a comically small and trivial measurement that highlights the futility of his existence. Symbols of The Lovesong of J Alfred Prufrock. The coffee spoons symbolize the small, repetitive actions that make up Prufrock's life. Instead of living boldly or pursuing great goals, he has reduced his life to a series of insignificant routines. At the end of the poem, Prufrock imagines himself in the chambers of the sea, with sea girls wreathed with seaweed. These mermaids symbolize fantasy and escape. However, Prufrock admits that the human voices of reality will wake him, and he will drown. This suggests that he cannot truly escape his fears and doubts. When Prufrock asks, "Do I dare disturb the universe?" he uses the universe as a symbol of the large, important actions he is afraid to take. His hesitation shows that he feels small and powerless in the face of life's challenges. Prufrock as a modern anti-hero. In literature, a hero is often someone brave, strong, and decisive. Prufrock is the opposite. He is hesitant, insecure, and afraid of taking risks. This makes him a modern anti-hero. He represents the ordinary person who feels lost in the complexities of modern life. Prufrock's fears and doubts make him relatable, but they also make him a tragic figure, unable to overcome his own limitations. Modernist features in The Lovesong of J Alfred Prufrock. T S Eliot's The Lovesong of J Alfred Prufrock is considered a landmark of modernist poetry because it breaks away from traditional poetic forms and themes. 1. Fragmentation. The poem's structure is fragmented, with abrupt shifts in focus and incomplete thoughts. This reflects the disjointed nature of modern life and Prufrock's mental state. 2. Urban imagery. The poem focuses on the bleak, lifeless city, a common theme in modernist literature. 3. Stream of consciousness. Prufrock's thoughts flow freely, often jumping from one idea to another without clear transitions. This technique mimics the way people think and shows his inner turmoil. 4. Rejection of romanticism. Unlike traditional love poems, the Lovesong of J Alfred Prufrock does not celebrate love or beauty. Instead, it focuses on fear, doubt, and failure. Conclusion. T S Eliot's The Lovesong of J Alfred Prufrock is a powerful exploration of fear, insecurity, and the challenges of modern life. Through vivid imagery, fragmented structure, and introspective tone, Eliot captures the inner struggles of his character. Prufrock's hesitation, alienation, and self-doubt make him a deeply human and relatable figure, even as his story is profoundly tragic. The poem is a reflection of the modern condition, where people often feel lost, disconnected, and unable to take meaningful action. By presenting these themes, Eliot invites readers to confront their own fears and insecurities, making the poem timeless and universally relevant.